How's everyone? I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone with words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares with me. From the heart, I appreciate every one of you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video. Thank you. Well, everyone, getting into what I want to talk about today, I do want to address something, or should I say someone, right? And no, I'm not going to put you on blast. Not going to do none of that weenie stuff, right? But just recently, they sent me clips on how there's this individual that goes on Joker stuff and tries to pump him up, basically telling him that why I'm always speaking about him, why he's always coming on, whatever, like that's all we do in our lives. I want to say this was with the most respect. I treasure our lives. It's peaceful. I enjoy them. Enjoy everyone. As I'm sure everyone that's with me also appreciate that peace, right? Do know I see you. You always come on the lives and ask me about that individual, which I never mentioned by name, and he put my name in his mouth. And you know, what would I look like? You know, I don't have the time in case you really heard what I put out there to waste it on somebody that is dead weight, has no meaning speaking on. Now, the second thing is, I understand a lot of people don't agree, and I put my message out. First off, I owe no loyalty to them individuals. Some refer to as legends, right? Because how things turn out, my personal thing. Like I said, everything I speak on, I wanted to fall on me and me alone, right? And when I put camarada's names, you guys know part of the message is speaking about those that fall in the way due to the causa, that's made up. And those are the ones that I speak on. Those fallen ones that, got pencil whipped, politicked on, that at the end of the day, all neighborhoods here or the system is, oh, this food's no good. And that's a wrap. Nobody speaks on it again, right? So I think not to redeem them, but at least, have some voice in the sense of, it was no weenie stuff. The reason why it's just facts about how things are. But anyways, excuse I even took your time with this. Today I'm gonna touch on what I've been asked about quite a bit, right? Which is to speak about one of my cell fights or a time there was a dilemma inside a cell, right, with the cellie. Excuse me. So for this one, I want to take you back to Tehachapi. I put this out on Tony's channel, but I never spoke on it here. And basically, this was when T was there, right, Toro. And I mentioned before in my last story how I was celled up with Toker from Isa Arriba. Well, there was this individual that got there from Rivera. They called him Lacy. Just to be clear, through at least through my time in the system, I met two individuals that were called Lacey's, right, from Rivera. Talking about the older cat, the one that had, you could say, some size to him, not the younger one, skinnier one. But anyways, when he got to C section, excuse me, he it was coming down from the bay, gonna be kicked out on that inactive thing they had going. And at the moment, as I mentioned before, the people that got kicked out of that program weren't really looked at in a good way because of the things they were doing, right? For example, on the 180, it was Güero and Joker and other individuals. I guess Homeboy coming down from the Bay had done something along his way, right? I was simply a sureño, I never asked because when I got asked for the favor, it was like, hey, look, we're gonna have Toker move out. We're gonna move Lacey to your cell, and he's cool. That's what I got told. He's cool. He's just gonna come up to yard, and he has something coming. And once he gets whatever he has coming, then he's still gonna be considered a good individual. He's still gonna program, as long as he bucks up and you know he patches up in the cell or whatever, right? And anyways, I said, Simon, I I couldn't question it regardless, right? Keep in mind, my van neighbors are the two Billies from 18, right? Next to me, we would always conversate in the van. For those that have been in the shoe, know that, man, you could hear anything that's happening in the cell next door unless you cover up the insult, right? But anyways, once he moved in with me, the individual, he had a good mindset on him, in the form of talking, his outlook towards the movement, other homies. Of course, he was older, right? And I always consider myself to be fair, you know. And I made a big mistake. To be sincere, it was my mistake all the way around. No buts or ribs about it. But at one point, before he got cleared the committee, I felt it wasn't right for him to go out and get blindsided, without him knowing what was happening. The way he spoke, I thought he was gonna go out there and buck up. That's what I would have done. I have something coming, I messed up. I won't go out, receive it, and just buck up, right? Who does ask? It was a mutual comeback. I don't know what you're talking about, and you leave it at that. But anyways, so I would end up telling homeboy, hey, I don't know what you did, but when you go out, you have a chacala coming, and it's just simply that. We got advised that you got something coming, and it has nothing to do with incel or you getting removed or it would have better been done in the cell. It's gonna happen out there. You got Southside incoming or whatever, and it's over, right? It's good to be left alone. And anyways, it was left at that. For those that have been in Tehachapi shoes, the windows, right? They go almost from the floor all the way to the roof. I was on the bottom bunk. And then you have the stool. And you can roll your mattress on the bottom to where you can sit on your mattress and put your feet on the stool. But in this case, I was writing an appeal to the streets, right? To a friend. It was nothing hot or nothing like that. Anyways, I'm there. I'm sitting down, writing it. Then all of a sudden, this individual sucker punches me. I'm talking about he was a healthy dude. And he cracked me good, to the point that he knocked me out. But when I tried to react, he dazed me, and like I mentioned to you guys before, I took a recent Olympic wrestling, And all I could do was just grab that fool. I spun around and I just pinned him. I put him on a chokehold, and I jumped on him and I wrapped my legs around the individual. Keep in mind I'm todo tonto on days, right? I don't even know where I'm at. Well, you guys get it. So I'm holding on to him. For those that know about that hole, if you hold it long, you're gonna take his life. There's no buts or ifs about it, right? And we fell to the floor. He fell on top of me, and as we hit the floor, I stretched, right, to put pressure on it more. And again, I didn't notice. And you know, when I finally like let go, I noticed he wasn't moving. I let go, and I stood up, and the individual was gone. Sincerely, he was gone. I had noticed. I had not noticed. Excuse me. By this time, Snoopy was banging on the wall, and Chaparro and Choppers was banging on the van. Well, what's going on, homie? So I get on the thing, and I tell Choppers, hey, this individual tried to lock it up by snaking me, right? And he's like, it's all right. What happened? And I told him, hey, I think I took his life, but hey, give me a minute. And I jumped down and I looked at him, and keep in mind, had not been out to the 180 yet. I didn't have a lot of shoe time, so the only thing that went through my head is like, man, by me trying to be solid with this individual, he's going to have me do the next 4 or 5 years in the shoe, right? Just because he couldn't go out and buck up and receive a butt whooping, right? He feared it. And, I looked at him, and to be sincere, my reaction was to kick him in the grill, right? So I kicked him in the grill, and automatically, the minute I kicked him in the grill, he gasped for air. When he did so, he opened his eyes, scared. He backtracked towards the door. When I seen him at the door, he starts yelling for the COs. You know, you guys know the size of the cells there; they're big, right? I run, I take a little hop, and then I jump with both feet. I crack him in the face, and I get up and I get on him. He's yelling for the COs, right? And I keep on him until eventually the SEALs would run up in there and open up the door and mace us and do the whole duties as officers, right? And he would tell the COs that I tried to take his life, which in reality, when I went out there, I did what we were supposed to. The SEALs asked, and hey, I don't know what he's talking about. You know, there was a misunderstanding, and I have no problem with the individual, and it was left at that. I went back into cell and I explained myself, and I was like, "Oh well, you at least you saved camaradas from getting snitched on ones that happened on the yard. You got them better than they would have probably got them on the yard." In my head, I'm like, man. But anyways, this was a short story on an incel fight, you could say, but it was due to me. It was my error. You don't attempt to give them individuals that upper hand. You know, excuse me. I know a lot is spoken, but when individuals decide to go sideways in the system, they're gonna take everything and everyone they know. It's like the case I spoke earlier. You know, even though the big homie from the area spoke out and said this individual's this, and that. He's not welcome in the area. There's still individuals from that area that come on and try to pump him up. I mean, come on, dude. Again, I don't have the time for it, literally. And it's not why I'm on YouTube. I'm not going to waste my time on someone that they brief, told, and place it off like nada. Then the day the papyrus there, the paperwork, you can't argue with that. And on the paperwork it says it real clear who he told on. But anyways, later on I will find out lazy. That's what they thought of him. They thought on him, of course, not debriefing, right? But being up there in Pelican Bay and at the same time keeping the squad informed on certain situations that were happening. As Don mentioned one, they didn't false him. But anyway, again, I don't want this. And I'm sure those with me don't want this, and I apologize for even addressing it. I guess I'm even speaking out. It's like, don't come on the lives, please. And start trying to get me to say something negative on this individual. So you go over there and you pump him up towards me because you're attracted to the drama. There's a lot of it on YouTube, and I respect it. I said it once, I say it again. My utmost respects to all his viewers and subscribers. Not for him though. So, anyways, the look on this one is exactly that. In the system, you're gonna always have to be careful, or be trucha more than anything, right? On everybody, because you never know how that person's feeling today. It could have been a negative day, and he decides to go sideways. You know, again, loyalty, it's just not there. You know, and again, people disagree with how I tell my walk, but again, it's my walk. It's those I rub elbows with personally. I don't speak about things I haven't, and I don't speak about things that there ain't paperwork on one way or another from Federico's or whatever, right? So, if you want to compare me and say I'm this, and that, yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm at peace. I know what I've done and where I've been. And surely I've never debriefed and I never went sideways. Anyways, everyone, I hope I made sense. This was more a cautionary tale than anything. I just wanted to share with those that keep asking if I could touch on an incel incident that I once had. Do excuse me if, you know, again, not once do I mention names, right? But you know who you are. That goes back and forth, like, you know, and if that's who you are, my respect. But it does bother me because they're using our lives for negative. And you can speak of me, whatever. But when you start speaking about the town and the people on the live and in negative form, and that's something I don't block nobody. I don't raise nothing. But do know when it comes to the lives, I'm also not the one that manages them. I leave that respect to friends. With this said, everyone, my loving prayers. I hope I don't sound too bad. Those that were in my life know why. Buenas noches. Please stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.